The sky was burning when the last shuttle rose from the surface. Commander Rin Carter stood in the shadow of a broken tower, watching the engines flare and fade into the clouds. The ground shook with the roar of departure, but the sound only cut deeper into his chest. That was the last shuttle. The last chance. And he was not on it. He had been too far from the loading zone, too deep in the wreckage when the order was given. The colony leaders had waited as long as they could, but the alien war machines were already dropping from orbit. They could not risk staying longer. Ren knew that. But still, the sight of that shuttle climbing without him felt like a blade twisting in his chest. His people were gone. He was left behind. The wind carried the smell of smoke and melted metal. Around him, the colony was nothing more than a graveyard of steel and ash. Streets were broken, buildings shattered, and the sky glowed with fire as the alien army moved closer. Their ships drifted above like shadows with glowing eyes, watching, waiting. Their ground forces scoured the ruins, hunting for survivors. Ren pressed his hand against the rifle strapped to his back. It was nearly empty. Ammunition was low. Food was gone. The situation was clear: he was a dead man walking. But he was not the kind of man to wait for death to come knocking. He remembered the looks on the faces of the evacuees as they ran into the shuttle. Mothers holding children. Soldiers too wounded to fight being carried inside. There had been no time to argue. The commander had shouted for everyone to board and ordered the pilot to lift. Ren had been outside the perimeter, still trying to hold back the alien scouts. By the time he returned, the engines were already burning. He had screamed for them to stop, but the roar drowned his voice. The sight of the shuttle rising into the sky was the last memory he had of his people. They thought he was gone already. Maybe they were right. The sound of metal claws echoed nearby. Ren dropped low, crawling across the rubble to hide behind a cracked wall. A patrol of alien machines passed by, tall and insect-like with glowing cores at their center. Their movements were sharp, mechanical, almost alive. They stopped, scanning the ruins, their long blades dragging across the stone as if tasting the air. Ren held his breath. His heart hammered against his ribs. One of the machines turned its head, scanning with its glowing eye. For a moment he thought it had seen him. But then, like ghosts, they moved on. He waited until the sound faded into the distance before standing again. His hands were shaking, but his mind was sharp. He could not stay in the open. He needed shelter, supplies, and a plan. Every instinct in his body told him the same thing: survive. The colony shipyards were on the far side of the city. If anything was left, if the fire had not consumed it all, maybe he could find something there. He knew the designs, the machines, the technology. He had worked on them once. A thought sparked in his mind, dangerous, almost laughable, but still a spark. If they had left him behind, then maybe he could build his own way out. The idea was madness. One man could not build a shuttle alone, not with the tools scattered and the aliens hunting. But the human heart was built for madness. He had seen it before in wars back on Earth. People who refused to die when death was certain. People who built weapons out of scraps and hope. He was a soldier, but more than that, he was human. And humans never gave up until the last breath was gone. The sky thundered again as alien bombers passed overhead. The ground shook, dust rising into the air. Ren pulled his jacket tighter and pushed forward, moving carefully through the ruins. He knew the city better than most. He knew the back routes, the maintenance tunnels, the narrow alleys where machines could not follow. Every step was a gamble, but every step took him closer to the shipyard. The silence pressed heavy on his ears, broken only by the distant rumble of destruction. He reached a collapsed bridge and stopped. Below him lay the skeletons of transport ships, blackened and broken. Their twisted frames reached upward like the fingers of dead giants. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing slow. The image of the shuttle leaving him replayed in his mind, sharp and cruel. It should have crushed him. It should have broken him. But instead, it lit a fire inside his chest. He opened his eyes and whispered to himself, a promise carried on the smoke-filled wind. If they won't save me, I'll save myself. His voice was steady, low, and full of something the aliens could never understand. Not despair. Not fear. But defiance. The sound of footsteps came again, closer this time. He tightened his grip on the rifle and crouched low. The hunt had begun. The machines wanted him, and they would not stop. But Ren Carter was not prey. He was not done. And in the ruins of a dead colony, he was about to start something the galaxy would never forget. The shipyard was a graveyard. Rusted frames of half-built shuttles stood like broken ribs against the smoke-filled sky. Commander Ren Carter moved slowly among them, his boots crunching over shattered glass and scorched metal. The air smelled of oil, ash, and death. This was where his people had once built dreams of the stars, where ships had been born to carry colonists across galaxies. Now it was nothing but silence and ruin. Still, as his eyes scanned the wreckage, a spark lit inside him. If there was even a single working engine left, a single power core, maybe, just maybe, he could fly. The thought was wild. One man, building a ship alone while an army of alien hunters swept the planet. It should have been impossible. But impossible had never stopped humanity before. His pulse quickened as he climbed over the wreck of a small transport. He could almost see it in his mind, pieces coming together, old hull plates, scorched wiring, broken thrusters. If he could not board their shuttle, then he would build his own. Not pretty. Not safe. But his only chance. He searched the hangars first. Dust clung to the walls, and broken crates lay scattered across the floor. Inside one he found what he needed, fuel cells, half empty but still alive. He grinned, the first real smile since the shuttle left without him. Next, he pried open the doors of a storage bay and uncovered flight computers, damaged but fixable. His hands trembled as he touched them. This was more than luck. This was survival calling to him. But time was his enemy. Outside, the alien machines were sweeping closer. He could hear them in the distance, their metallic voices clicking like knives. Every hour he spent searching was an hour closer to being hunted down. He dragged the supplies into a hidden corner of the shipyard, a dark maintenance bay beneath the floor. It would be his workshop, his refuge. He worked fast, stripping wires, connecting power cores, welding hull plates with sparks that lit up the shadows. Every clang of his tools echoed like thunder, and he kept glancing at the entrance, afraid the noise would call death upon him. Nights were worse. He could not rest. The aliens prowled in the darkness, their sensors sweeping the ruins. Sometimes he saw their glowing eyes through the cracks in the walls. Sometimes he heard the hiss of their blades as they cut through metal, searching. He would clutch his rifle, hard hammering, praying they did not find the hidden bay. More than once, he thought they had. Footsteps would stop just above him, machines humming like predators breathing on his neck. But they always moved on, fooled by the shadows. One evening, while searching through another ruined hangar, he found something that made his breath catch. It was an unfinished shuttle frame, half-built, covered in dust and scorch marks. The wings were damaged, the cockpit shattered, but the bones were strong. Strong enough to carry him into the stars. He ran his hand across the cold metal, and for the first time since being left behind, hope filled his chest. This would be it. This broken body of steel would become his lifeline. He worked like a man possessed. By day, he scavenged for parts, engines from old transports, panels from wrecked drones, even alien tech from fallen machines. By night, he assembled them, welding human steel to alien alloys, wiring computers that were never meant to speak to each other. Sparks rained down as he forced them into harmony. The work was madness, but in madness there was survival. His hands bled, his eyes burned, but he did not stop. And yet the aliens were not blind. They began to notice patterns, missing parts, disturbed wreckage. Patrols doubled. Hunters lingered longer. One night, as he carried a stolen alien power core back to his bay, he heard the unmistakable whir of drones behind him. He froze, heart pounding, then sprinted through the ruins. The machines gave chase, their lights cutting through the smoke. He ducked into the shadows, weaving through collapsed tunnels, barely escaping as laser fire scorched the walls around him. When he finally stumbled back into the bay, gasping for air, he knew the truth. The aliens had caught his scent. They knew someone was alive. And they would not stop until they found him. His time was running out. Still, he refused to stop building. With each piece he locked into place, his resolve hardened. The shuttle was crude, ugly, patched together from broken bones of two worlds. But it lived. Every day it looked more like salvation. As he tightened the last bolt of the engine housing, he whispered to himself, not out of fear but defiance. They left me. But I'm not finished yet. Outside, the machines screeched in the night, hunting for him. And inside, in the glow of dying lamps and welding sparks, Ren Carter built madness into hope. He built his way back to the stars. The ruins no longer felt empty. Ren Carter could feel eyes on him whenever he moved through the broken city. The alien patrols were closer now, their machines searching with sharper intent. Their glowing sensors swept across rubble, their blades cut through walls as if sniffing for prey. The air was thick with their presence. He knew they were hunting him. The unfinished shuttle was no longer a secret. Somehow, they had discovered his trail. He worked harder, faster, every sound of welding or hammering a risk. Sweat ran down his face, mixing with dust and grease as he tightened the engine mounts. The shuttle was taking shape. A cockpit shell, half-patched wings, an engine core bolted into place with scavenged parts. It was far from finished, but it looked like a ship now, not just a pile of broken steel. That alone was enough to give him strength. Yet every time he raised his head, he expected to see glowing eyes staring from the shadows. The first attack came at dawn. Ren was dragging fuel lines from a wreck when he heard the crunch of metal footsteps behind him. He spun around and fired before thinking. The shot echoed across the ruins, tearing into the chest of a tall machine. Sparks burst out, and the machine staggered back, but two more appeared from the smoke. They screeched, blades extending. Ren ran, weaving through rubble, firing blindly. One of the machines leapt onto the wall above him, claws digging deep. He ducked just in time as the blade slashed where his head had been. He dove through a hole in the wall and scrambled into a maintenance tunnel, heart pounding like a drum. The machines pursued him, their glowing eyes scanning through the dark, but the tunnels were narrow. Their bodies were too large. They hissed and scraped against the stone but could not follow him deeper. Ren crawled through the shadows, his rifle heavy in his arms, and only when their voices faded did he allow himself to breathe. He returned to the bay shaken, his nerves burning, but his resolve stronger. The aliens knew he lived. They would come again. From that day, it was war. Every night they prowled closer. Drones flew above, shining lights into the ruins. Patrols circled the shipyard, blades dragging along the walls like claws on bone. Ren fought back with traps. He rigged explosives from fuel cells, set snares with broken wires, used the rubble as weapons. One machine fell into a pit of sharpened beams he had built, its body impaled as it screamed with static. Another was torn apart when he lured it into a collapsing tower. The ruins themselves became his ally, and he moved through them like a ghost. But each battle cost him time, and time was something he could not afford to lose. Still, the shuttle grew. Piece by piece, it came alive. The wings were patched with alien armor, scarred but strong. The cockpit was crude, rebuilt from shattered glass and steel frames. The engine was a beast of mismatched parts, humming with unstable power. He tested it once, just a spark of life, and the roar shook the bay. For a moment, hope filled the dark. Then silence returned, broken only by the sound of the machines outside. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, he returned from scavenging to find the entrance of his bay disturbed. The dust was moved. The stones shifted. Someone or something had found it. He froze, rifle raised, then slipped inside. The shuttle was still there, untouched, but a faint clicking echoed in the dark. His stomach tightened. Slowly, he crept forward, eyes scanning the shadows. That was when he saw it. A drone, small but deadly, hovered near the shuttle's wing. Its single red eye glowed, scanning every detail. It had seen too much. Ren fired. The shot tore through the drone, sparks flying as it fell to the ground with a screech. But the damage was done. They knew. They would come for him now with everything they had. That night he worked without rest. His hands shook from exhaustion, his arms heavy, but he forced the pieces together. Bolts tightened, wires fused, controls patched with alien panels. He whispered to himself as he worked, a mantra against the fear pressing in from the dark. Not prey. Not finished. Not done. The next morning, the sound of engines thundered across the ruins. Not Shuttle's hunters. The alien war machines were gathering. He climbed to the surface and looked out. Across the city, dozens of glowing eyes flickered through the smoke. They were moving toward him, converging like predators circling wounded prey. His bay was no longer safe. The shuttle was no longer hidden. His breath came heavy as he dropped back inside, staring at the half-finished ship. It was not ready. The wings still needed stabilizers. The engine was unstable. The weapons were barely functional. But he had no choice. The hunt had become a siege, and he was at the center. The sound of metal claws scraping against stone filled the air, closer now, echoing down into his refuge. Sparks rained from the entrance as the machines cut their way in. Ren grabbed his rifle, his eyes burning with fire. He whispered to the ship, to himself, to the universe. Not today. And then he moved, ready to defend the dream he had built from nothing, even if it meant dying beside it. The walls shook as the aliens forced their way into the bay. Sparks lit the dark like lightning, each shower of fire cutting closer to his refuge. Ren Carter gritted his teeth, his pulse hammering in his ears. The shuttle loomed behind him, still unfinished, its patched wings stretched wide like a beast not yet awake. He glanced at it once, then back at the entrance. The machines were coming. He had no time left. Either the ship flew now, or it never would. He ran to the cockpit, slamming the hatch closed as the first alien blade cut through the wall. The inside smelled of metal and sweat, wires dangling like veins across the panels. He strapped himself in, fingers trembling as they moved across controls that barely made sense. Human circuits spliced into alien cores, buttons carved from salvaged panels nothing matched, yet everything hummed with a dangerous kind of life. Come on, he muttered, slamming the ignition. The engine coughed once, twice, then roared to life. The shuttle shook, the bay walls trembling from the power. The noise drew the aliens like blood in the water. Ren saw them through the cracked glass, dark, insect-like shapes spilling into the bay, glowing eyes fixed on him. Blades raised, claws digging into the walls as they screamed in metallic rage. He pushed the throttle. The ship lurched forward, engines screaming. Dust rained from the ceiling as the shuttle fought to rise. The landing gear scraped against the floor, sparks flying as the whole frame groaned under the strain. Outside, the aliens charged. One leapt onto the hull, stabbing down with its blade. The shuttle shook violently, alarms blaring. Rin gritted his teeth, slammed every control forward, and the ship dragged itself upward. The bay exploded with fire as the engine ignited fully. The force tore through the ruined hangar, throwing machines aside like rag dolls. The shuttle climbed, tearing free of the ground at last. For a heartbeat, Rin felt it the impossible was real. He was flying. But the joy lasted only seconds. The right wing shuddered, sparks bursting from a broken stabilizer. The ship tilted hard, smashing into the side of a tower. Metal screamed as the wing bent, nearly tearing off. Rin fought the controls, pulling with all his strength, but the shuttle was wild, unstable. The sky tilted, the ground spun, and then the ship slammed back down into the ruins with a bone-crushing crash. The cockpit exploded in light and smoke. Rin's head slammed against the seat, stars bursting in his vision. Pain seared through his body. The alarms wailed, red lights flashing across the panels. He coughed, blood on his lips, and forced himself to move. The ship was broken but not dead. Not yet. Through the cracked glass, he saw them coming. Dozens of alien machines swarmed the wreck, circling like wolves around a wounded animal. Their claws clicked against the metal, their glowing eyes burning through the smoke. One climbed onto the nose of the shuttle, its blade raised to pierce through the cockpit. Rin grabbed his rifle. He fired through the glass, the shot tearing into the machine's head. It fell backward, screeching. Another replaced it. Then another. They slammed against the hull, blades stabbing, claws tearing. Sparks rained as they tried to rip the shuttle open. He fought the controls again, his hands slick with blood. The engine sputtered but caught fire once more. The ship lurched, bouncing against the ruins, metal grinding like a dying beast. But Rin did not stop. His voice was a growl, a whisper, a prayer, and a curse all at once. Come on. Come on. Don't quit on me now. The shuttle shook, its frame threatening to split apart, but it dragged itself upward again. The aliens screamed, clinging to the hull as it rose higher. One forced its way into the wing joint, tearing wires free. Sparks shot through the cockpit. Rin's vision blurred, his head pounding, but he held on. Then the engine roared too loud, too hot. The entire shuttle dropped, slamming back to the earth with a thunderous crash. The impact threw him against the restraints, the world spinning into smoke and fire. Silence followed, broken only by the hiss of burning metal. The ship lay broken, tilted on its side. Rin coughed again, forcing air into his lungs. His body screamed in pain, but his hands still gripped the controls. Outside, he heard the scrape of claws. The aliens were coming closer, circling the wreck, ready to tear him apart. For a moment, doubt stabbed at him. Maybe this was the end. Maybe the shuttle would never fly, and he would die in the ruins like the last survivor of a forgotten colony. But then he remembered the shuttle lifting, even if just for a few seconds. It had flown. It could fly again. That thought burned brighter than the pain, brighter than the fear. He pulled himself free from the seat, stumbling through the broken cockpit. The ship was alive enough to repair. He just needed time. And time, he thought grimly, would have to be stolen. He raised his rifle and turned toward the sound of claws. The machines would have to kill him to stop him. And even then, he would not go quietly. The night burned with fire as the wrecked shuttle lay smoking in the ruins. Rin Carter pulled himself out of the broken cockpit, blood dripping from a gash on his forehead. His body ached with every breath, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. The shuttle had risen, if only for a few moments. That meant it could rise again. It could be finished. It could carry him away from this graveyard. But the machines were not going to give him the chance. They came out of the smoke, their glowing eyes surrounding him like a ring of fire. Long blades extended from their arms, dripping sparks as they scraped against the ground. Their claws clicked, their voices hissed in metallic static, the sound of hunger in machine form. One of them screeched, the sound like tearing steel, and charged forward. Ren raised his rifle and fired, the shot exploding through its chest. The machine staggered but did not fall. He fired again, emptying the last of his rounds. Sparks flew as the creature collapsed, its glowing eye fading. He dropped the rifle, it was useless now, and reached for his knife. The other machines moved closer, circling. He knew he could not kill them all. But he could steal from them. He dove at the fallen machine, ripping into its core with the knife. Sparks burned his hands as he tore out a glowing piece of alien tech, a humming power coil that pulsed like a heart. He stumbled back to the shuttle, clutching it like treasure. The other machines shrieked and charged. He slammed the cockpit hatch shut and threw the coil into the engine housing. The ship's systems flickered, then roared to life. Blue fire burned in the core, stronger than before. The human engine fused with alien power, and the shuttle shuddered, alive again. The hull shook as blades tore into it, sparks raining down inside. Ren gritted his teeth and went to work, ripping wires, forcing the alien coil into the ship's veins. The panels glowed brighter, power surging through circuits that had been dead minutes ago. It was madness. Wires screamed. The engine howled. But it worked. For the first time, the ship felt less like a patchwork machine and more like a predator. The cockpit shook violently as claws punched through the hull. A blade stabbed just inches from his head, slicing into the controls. He grabbed the knife again, slashing at the blade until it withdrew. Then he slammed his hand on the ignition. The engine screamed, the whole ship trembling with fury. The aliens tried to hold it down, claws digging deep, but the power was too much. The shuttle dragged itself upright, its wings sparking, its engines glowing with unnatural fire. "Come on," Ren growled through clenched teeth. "You're not a shuttle anymore. You're a weapon." The ship roared as if it understood him. The engine thundered, throwing the machines back in a wave of fire and force. One clung to the wing, its claws sinking deep, but the heat tore it apart, its body falling in molten pieces. Another leapt onto the hull, only to be burned alive by the glowing exhaust. Ren slammed the throttle forward. The shuttle lifted again, rising higher this time, shaking but holding together. The city fell away beneath him. Towers of broken steel glowed red with fire as the ruins stretched out in every direction. The machines swarmed below, hundreds of glowing eyes staring up at him, screeching in rage. They had hunted him like prey, but now he rose above them. But the sky was not safe. Alien drones descended from orbit, black shapes cutting through the clouds. They locked onto him instantly, their weapons glowing. Laser fire tore through the air, searing past the shuttle's wings. Ren yanked the controls, the ship jerking wildly to the side. Panels burst, alarms screamed, but the shuttle dodged the first barrage. He hit a switch on the alien coil, and a surge of power ripped through the engines. The shuttle leapt forward like a beast unleashed, faster than he ever thought possible. The drones chased him, their fire raining down. The shuttle's patchwork wings bent and screamed under the strain. Ren's knuckles turned white on the controls, every move a gamble between flight and death. He could feel the ship tearing itself apart, but he pushed harder, every second taking him closer to freedom. A drone lined up behind him, its weapons glowing bright. At the last moment, Ren twisted the shuttle, rolling hard to the side. The drone overshot, passing too close to the wing. Ren slammed a switch, releasing a burst of unstable engine fire. The drone was engulfed, burning into ash before it even screamed. The others hesitated. For the first time, they feared. This was not prey running from the hunt. This was something new, something deadly, something that should not exist. Ren's lips curled into a bloody smile as he pushed the shuttle higher. The stars shimmered above the smoke. He was close. Too close to stop now. His voice was hoarse, raw, but filled with fire as he whispered into the empty cockpit. You left me behind. But I'm coming back. And I'm not coming back alone. The shuttle roared, its human heart fused with alien power, and together they climbed into the sky. The stars opened above him like an ocean of fire. Ren Carter gripped the controls, his body aching, his vision blurred, but his heart steady. The shuttle, if it could still be called that, shook and groaned as it pierced the upper atmosphere. Flames licked at the hull, smoke filled the cabin, but the engines held. The alien power coil hummed like a living heart, pushing him higher, faster, beyond the grasp of the burning planet below. For the first time since the last shuttle left without him, Ren saw the darkness of space. And it was his. But there was no peace waiting above. Orbit swarmed with enemy ships, black spears glinting with cold light. They turned toward him the moment he broke free of the clouds. The hunt was not over, it had only grown larger. Drones darted forward, weapons glowing, and warships shifted in formation, engines burning as they closed in. His stolen ship was a spark against the storm. Still, he bared his teeth in a grin. They thought they were predators. They were wrong. The first drone rushed him, its cannons flashing. Ren threw the shuttle into a sharp roll, panels rattling as lasers tore past. He yanked a lever wired into the alien coil, and the ship screamed with sudden power. The engines flared, surging like lightning. The shuttle shot forward, ramming straight through the drone. Metal shattered, sparks scattering into the void. The ship shook from the impact, but it survived. The drone did not. Alarms blared as the alien fleet locked onto him. Missiles streaked across space, glowing trails chasing his ship. He twisted through the fire, weaving between blasts, the shuttle groaning under the strain. Panels burst, alarms screamed louder, but the hybrid vessel moved faster than anything built by human hands. The alien coil had changed it. It was no longer just a shuttle patched together by desperation. It was something new. Something fierce. Ren spotted the colony fleet in the distance, his people, the ones who had left him behind. Their ships were battered, limping from battle, their engines weak. He could see the glow of shields flickering, defenses failing. The aliens had hunted them across the stars. They had nowhere left to run. His chest tightened. He had not just built this ship for himself. He had built it for them. He pushed the throttle forward, aiming straight at the enemy formation. Alien warships shifted to block his path, their guns glowing brighter. The cockpit shook as the first blast struck his shields. Warning lights screamed red. His hands bled on the controls, but he did not falter. He slammed another switch, channeling every drop of power from the alien core into the weapons. The panels lit up, the shuttle's nose glowing as hidden cannons hummed to life. The first shot fired like a star being born. A beam of white-hot light tore through space, ripping straight through the hull of an alien destroyer. The explosion shook the void, scattering debris in all directions. Ren's grin widened. His ship was no shuttle. It was a war machine born of desperation and fury. And it was his. The human fleet fell silent as they watched. On their screens, a lone ship blazed through the enemy line, tearing warships apart with impossible power. They did not know what they were seeing. Some whispered it was impossible. Others thought it was a trick. But the voice that crackled across their comms silenced them all. "This is Carter," he growled through static. "The last shuttle left without me. But I built another. And I'm bringing hell with me." The alien fleet answered with fury. Drones swarmed him, ships firing in all directions. But the hybrid vessel moved like a beast unleashed. Ren dodged, rolled, and fired, every strike carving holes into the enemy. His ship screamed with pain, armor cracking, wires sparking, but it kept fighting. Every shot he took cleared a path for the human fleet. Every explosion bought them another chance to live. On the bridge of the colony flagship, officers stared in disbelief as Carter's ship punched a hole through the enemy blockade. The commander, the same one who had ordered the last shuttle to leave without him, whispered in shock. He survived and built that. The humans did not hesitate. With Carter carving the way, their battered fleet surged forward, engines burning as they broke through. Alien ships fell one by one, torn apart by the fury of a man they had abandoned. Rin's body shook with exhaustion, blood running down his arms, but his voice was steady as he whispered to himself in the cockpit. Not prey. Not forgotten. Not done. The battle raged until the last enemy ship burned. Silence followed, heavy and unreal. The human fleet drifted forward, stunned, staring at the lone vessel that had turned the tide. Its wings were torn, its hull scorched, its engines bleeding fire. But it was alive. And so was he. The comms lit up with voices, shouting his name, calling him a hero. But Rin only leaned back in the seat, closing his eyes for a moment. He was not a hero. He was just a man who refused to die when death came for him. As the fleet gathered around him, one message repeated across every channel. A message that would echo across the stars. The last shuttle left without him. But he built another. And from that day on, no one in the galaxy ever forgot the man who turned scraps and defiance into a warship, and who returned not as the abandoned, but as the weapon that saved them all.